And hello, everybody. My name is Keith Williams. Welcome to The Works podcast, where we talk about just about anything and everything. It's kind of like when you go and order a sandwich, they say, well, what do you want on it? They'll say, I want the works, meaning I want everything on it. And that's why we entitled this podcast The Works, because we talk about anything and everything. You never know what type of information you're going to get here. It might be entertaining to some, it might be educational to some, it might be inspiring to some. So we have a little bit of everything here. And for this week, we have a great guest with us on today, and her name is Rose Bonner. Welcome to the show.
Yes, good afternoon. Well, thank you for having me.
And you let everyone know who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Rose Bonner. My company name is Juno Promise. I have a book called Unlock the Secrets for Relaxers, Perms, and Colors, which can be found on Amazon or my website, junopromise.com. And it basically helps people maintain their hair to prevent dry, damaged hair or grow your hair, what you're looking to do to maintain beautiful, lustrous hair.
Oh, so you are an author and you have your own company.
Yes.
Okay, so the first question would be, this is, related to your book. Could you tell us a little bit about your book in detail?
Sure. The book is basically, it gives step-by-step instructions for relaxers, perms, and colors. But a lot of people get those treatments done at the salon. So, but when they get home, they go, oh, what do I do from here? Unless they go back to the salon, they might could use a little bit of help of keeping the hair shiny and beautiful in between their treatments. And if they're bold enough, they may do color or perma relaxers at home. So my book gives you the detailed information and doesn't leave anything out so that you can have everything you need to have great results, regardless of what hair type you have.
Do you have a lot of like holiday hair hacks for people to engage in? I mean to use?
Sure, every day is a holiday. So if you're trying to keep your hair in a healthy manner, my book is the place to find it. Because whether you're doing an updo or you're doing dreads or you're doing pin curls or whatever you're doing to make your hair have that extra kind of razzle dazzle, I'll just say it that way, for the holidays, you still need to have that basic structure of well maintained hair.
Um, what led you to write your book?
I basically wrote the book because a lot of products that you buy in the salons or even in the stores, they will only give you so much information, and the rest of it, you've got to figure it out on your own. So the part that you have to figure out on your own is in my book. And then there are even some products that you cannot buy if you're not a licensed clinician. So I kind of level the playing field by providing books that are used in the salon every day that people can buy and get similar, if not exact same results as the salon gets.
Are you familiarized with are you familiarized with the styling?
I'm sorry you kind of cut out there. I couldn't hear you. I apologize.
Are you fairly knowledgeable in I guess uh the styling industry?
Uh, what do you mean by the styling industry?
What are some of the latest trends?
Sure. Now, the styling, it goes from cyclical, right? So I noticed that in Vogue and in the runways, the women are kind of doing their hair in an updo, or they're doing still the straight look. So it's really a personal preference on how you want to look, how you want to wear your hair. And my book gives you the foundation that you can do anything with your hair, men or women. I apologize, I have a little cold, but other than that, I hope you can hear me clearly.
Oh, I can hear you clearly.
Good.
So we will try to make this as short as possible. Here, I know how it is when you have a cold, and it's terrible.
Sure, no worries. I'm excited to be here. Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. I know you said Williams was the last name. What was your first name again, please?
Keith,
Okay, Keith. Thank you. Yes, I'd love to talk to you, Keith. If you have the time, I've got the time.
absolutely. Absolutely. So is there a correlation between your hairstyle and mental health?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question, Keith. Thank you for asking me that. On my website, I talk about the erector pili muscle, and it's a really cool muscle that we're all aware of it. If we're like someone comes up and scares you, how your hair steps up, jumps on your head, or the hair on your body jumps up. You know that response, Keith?
Yes.
That's the same response when we're having a bad hair day.
Oh wow, I like to hear them. I like to hear more about that. It says that um, as a therapist, that that you're able to help understand how a new hairstyle can give you a new perception of yourself and ultimately help your mental health. What do you mean by that?
Well, I feel when you feel good, you look good, right?
Heard that a lot.
So, yeah, so I think that's pretty much basically how it goes. No matter how long or how short or how curly or how straight, no matter what your hair looks like, if you feel good, you're going to probably put a little bit more into it, number one. And the erector pili muscle is not going to grab your scalp and make your hair stand up on its ends. And you can't do anything with it because you're just razzle dazzled, right?
Uh, yeah, I've never really thought of it that way. Now, being that we are in a new year, is it common for, people to say, well, it's a new year, so I want a new look. So is that common? And
Yes,
why
of
do people
course.
feel that way?
And you said, why do people feel that way?
Yes.
Oh, wow. You're asking me some really deep questions, Keith. Without an assessment, it's kind of hard to say what a person is feeling because our feelings are so individualized. We have group collective behavior, but how we feel towards things is basically about our environment. So I think whenever a person wants to go into the new year with a fresh new do, a fresh new look, I would really recommend them to just try to do maybe a color instead of a cut because you can always change the color. If you cut your hair too short, then you're stuck with it, right? But if you do a color, then you can just easily change it if you want to.
And it also says that you are pretty much an expert in cosmetology. Has any of that changed in the last 20 to 50 years, or is still pretty much the same?
You know, the safety has gotten much better. And let's just look at relaxers, for example. You don't have to use lye to have an excellent straight hairdo. And that's a really misconception when people think about relaxers, they think about lye. Well, there's a company, I'm sure you've heard of Mazzani. They have a product that straightens your hair and they do not use lye. So that's one big thing that's really changed the deal. And then when you look at perms, you no longer have to apply a lot of heat for the perm to be activated. So things have changed. And one good thing about men's hair color, and I want more men to really grab onto this idea, hair is hair. So you don't have to buy a man's hair color product to get the results that you want, because unfortunately, the black hair dye for men's hair products has more carcinogens and cancer causing agents in it than other hair color that are just for women per se. So you just want to use a product that works for you.
So what if someone decides that I want to, have a salon service at home? Mean I want to do my hair at home without going to the salon.
That is very well possible. If you read my book from the first to the last page, you will have everything you need. Because in the salon, because they've been doing it and they've been trained to do it, they have little tricks and techniques that they can do that you may not be aware of that they're doing because they're on the top of your head, right? So if you know the little techniques, whether you're doing a perm, a relaxer, or a color, or you're just trying to take care of your natural hair, you need to know some basics that just because we have hair doesn't mean we know all about our hair, right?
I don't think most of us. I don't think a lot of us are familiar with
I couldn't hear you, Keith. You kind of went away.
that. I think that we're not too familiar with our hair. That's absolutely correct.
Yes. So just some basic things. And one really thing that kind of saddens me about, let's just say, Black Americans, melanated people in America, is that when their hair don't grow, they think that it won't grow, but it's probably the process that they're using on their hair that is why every time that it grows, it breaks. And one really thing I noticed Hollywood has kind of really grabbed this a lot is to wear a silk scarf to bed. That prevents a lot of wear and tear on anybody's hair if you have a silk pillowcase or a scarf. And then another really important thing is that you have to have a moisturizer. So, and if you don't know the right moisturizer, I'm sure you've got a lot of products under your counter that you've been trying. You're like, because it was a great deal, right?
All right. Go ahead. You can continue.
No, I saw something in the news today, Keith, and it was in the news, and I was so excited to read about it. Did you see the article where they were saying that men are, it seems like I'm going off subject, but I'm really not, that men are having challenges with menopause? Did you see that article?
No.
Yeah. And they're saying that how they're categorizing it is that they're saying ED, and we're adults, and depression and hair loss and belly fat gain, kind of the same symptoms that women have. But one thing that I really wanted to tell you about for your audience, I hope that men are listening, there's a product called Hoshu Wu. And it's really good for ED. It's really good for growing hair, and it's really good for, elevating your mood. So 3 out of 4 things you get covered with one herb called Hoshu Wu.
Is that less expensive than, let's say, getting hair transplant?
Absolutely. Now, and it depends on the stage of how you want to look and whatnot. But if you take the Hoshu herb, which is a Chinese herb, which is found on a company, the best grade is with dragon herbs, and you take it for 30 to 60 days, you'll see a remarkable difference in your hair. The shine, it'll help with grayness. It'll turn some of the hair back black. and it helps. It's kind of an aphrodisiac for a lot of people. That's why I say the ED part. So it could solve a lot of men's situations if just that one product all by itself.
Now, what are some of the best products? Let's just say that you have a lot of people that are on a budget and they want their hair, looking nice. What are some of the things that you recommend, that people can do or they can buy and without breaking the bank?
Yes, yes. That's why my book is so important, because it's kind of a collective idea of making sure that your hair is awesome the way you want it to look, as well as you're not spending all your money for just your hair, right? So sometimes it seems like a product is expensive, but if you buy the product and you use it in the correct amount, it'll last you 3 to 4 months. So it gets down to being pennies for each time you use it. And things like that is really what's important. And a really inexpensive shampoo, really inexpensive conditioners, but you have to know which ones to use to be able to get into that budget that you're looking for when a person wants to save money instead of spending all their money on their hair.
Yeah, we have some people, going to the salon either every week and every 2 weeks, and they're spending an average of between 60 and $100.
Yes, I think going to the salon is an important tool, but at the same time, if you can't afford it, you have options available. Because even when you go to the salon, after you leave, maybe a week or so, your hair, it needs some help, right?
Mhm.
So you can read my book and find ways to where you can make it to the next salon treatment. Or if you can't go to the salon, then you can do it on your own at home without spending all your money.
So there are some self-treatment, things that you can do as well without actually going to the salon.
Yes. One really cool thing you can do, whether you have natural hair, relaxed hair, permed hair, colored hair, short hair, doesn't matter what kind of hair you have, but the amount of product makes the difference. You put olive oil and virgin olive oil. Now the market has changed to where you have to really be careful that you're getting 100% virgin olive oil. Put it on your hair before you shampoo your hair. And then you put the shampoo on top of the olive oil without putting water, wash it or shampoo it, rinse it out, and then shampoo it again. The olive oil gets down into the cuticle and it kind of creates a patchwork and seals the broken pieces in your hair strand. So it kind of puts a framework, when you put a shaffle on something to protect it, that's what the olive oil does to the hair. So little tricks like that, if you know them, then it makes a world of a difference in just how your hair looks on a day-by-day basis of looking shiny and healthy or looking dull and broken and not being able to grow.
Yeah, I experience a lot of people saying, I've been to the salon and it seems like my hair is breaking apart. I comb it and I see a whole lot of hair on my comb.
Yes, yes. There could be 3 different types of breakages. So in my book, it gives you the detailed insight on how you can decide on which one. The amount of hair is the key. Sometimes if you need a trim, your hair is going to break. If your hair is dry and damaged, your hair is going to break. Or if you're having some kind of hair loss, your hair is going to break. So depending on how much the hair is and how long the strand is to tell you what's causing it to break.
Now, does that have anything to do with age?
You know, it depends on what you've been doing to your hair along the years of what you consider getting older. So that could be a factor, but just age alone, if you use Hoshuu, it would not affect your hair at all. You can maintain your hair without it going totally white or gray if you don't want it to. It holds on, it helps you hold on to your own melanin in your hair, and it strengthens the hair so that your hair and your fingernails and your skin. So there are techniques that you can do to, kind of counter the getting old thing, but we all get older, right? But at the same time, you can have some upper hand in maintaining your hair as well as your skin and your nails.
But what about if continue to like hot irons, curling irons?
Good question. Good question. Because you notice now, I don't know, is your audience an African American audience?
Uh, Actually, we have audience members that are worldwide from all walks of life.
Okay, okay. So that's why I didn't want to go in one direction because hair is hair. So my book covers no matter how much melanin you have or don't have in your skin, my book can still give you good instruction. But the reason why I was thinking about melanated people is because there's sold products that are called hot, 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 very hot. And you don't need that much heat on your hair. So that's the most important thing. If you're using a curling iron, you want to keep it in a certain range between 250 and 360, depending on how thick your cuticle is. And you know your own hair better than anybody. So that's why I was wanting to make sure that people recognize that if you use a hot iron, you want to make sure you don't use it on the highest temperature or in a high range so that you can still maintain a healthy cuticle.
Is there anything with people? So what are some of the complaints that you have heard, and particularly women don't hear a lot of, complaints of, from men about their hair. But what are some of the complaints that you hear about women's hair particularly?
Just across the board, we're kind of shifting from to where men are being able to more express themselves rather than feeling like that they have to shave all their hair off or, not discuss their hair. But hair is hair, whether you're a man or a woman, you've got hair, it's hair. And the number one thing that I hear people always talk about is, like you said, Keith, the hair is breaking or is falling out. And that is the number one thing that I address in my book is that moisture, moisture, moisture. You have to have a balanced amount of moisture from the tip of your hair to the end of your hair to maintain that length and that health. So you have to have a good moisturizing conditioner. You have to have a protein conditioner. You have to have an oil-based conditioner. And if you buy the ones that are recommended in my book, you don't have to give all your money away to do so. And a good shampoo, we know that, but yes, the moisture is the most important thing from start to finish of building it into your hair so that your hair, a good example is like when the sun hits your hair, if it shows it to be shiny, then the cuticle is laying down and is healthy. But if the sun hits your hair and it looks dry and frizzy, that means that your hair needs moisture. It's dry. It needs, to be conditioned.
Oh, so we actually have the sun to determine whether or not we have our hair is healthy or it's not.
That's true.
Yeah, that's kind of
That's very true.
that's kind of cool. And I guess men really don't think about it, that much. I guess what I heard is that, they're saying that my hairline is, receiving, and I don't want to get a hair transplant because I know it's going to be expensive. So what they'll do is they'll cut all their hair off. What do you think about that?
That's a really, really deep subject because when you're looking at a man's receding hairline, it's a natural part it's basically heredity, but you can slow it down with the sugars that you do, the type of poisons that we all take, and how, whenever a guy when he gets out of the shower, he'll just rub his head really hard, just to get all the water out and just go on to the next thing, right? But he has to treat his hair gently because you're pulling it out of your head as you get older. So if you pat your hair instead of rubbing it, you're going to get the moisture out of your hair, but you're not pulling and yanking on it, pulling it out.
Oh, so when we do that, we're like literally pulling hair out of our hair. Mm.
Yes, over a period of time, you're weakening. We have two little muscles that hold on to each strand of our hair. And so when you're weakening those muscles, then they eventually just will give. And then the hair will just pop out, and you're like, oh my goodness. You notice you lose the hair right in the front, right? Because when you put shampoo on, you put it right there first, right? So this area is getting most of the work, but the rest of the hair, you're not working it as hard, so it doesn't come out as fast. So if you're going into the salon, they're going to start back here. They're going to work their way around. But when we do it at home, we just put it right there first. So that's a really important thing for men and women, to not put the shampoo directly on the front of your head first. Put it around your hair and then work it into your hair, and always be gentle with your hair.
Well, I guess that's something that we do make subconscious, without even realizing it. I know I'm
That's
guilty.
true. We do.
I am guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty. I do it
Well,
too. So is it
well,
something that
don't
we
worry.
have to so is it something that we have to train our brain, not to do?
Yes, we just consciously have to think about things sometimes, and read my book, and you'll see it gives you so many little tools and tricks that if you use some of them, you'll have great results with your hair.
Okay, I don't believe in giving a spoiler alert. So we're not gonna do that. Just buy the book. It's gonna be, I'm sure that it's gonna be worth the investment. Now, you also deal with mental health as well as we shift gears here. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. Um, and I had several conversations from mental health advocates, mental health professionals. We had several of them on a podcast, on another podcast. As a matter of fact, I had a mental health advocate on a podcast last Saturday, and
Oh, wow.
one of the things she talked about was what she have seen, and the mental stigmas, the stigmas that are associated with mental health. But I also asked all mental health professionals and experts, from your perspective, w- what do you believe the state of mental health is in America today?
I think the whole world is kind of suffering a mental health epidemic, right? Ever since we had COVID, people that were just normally going on about their work day, just living their life, never really knew. I mean, we all have stress, but no one ever really knew what anxiety was until they were locked in their houses. They couldn't talk to their friends. They couldn't leave the house, to socialize. Such an important part of our lives. So I think everybody got a touch of anxiety and depression, maybe not clinically diagnosed depression, but being a little depressed by having to be locked in your house all the time, right?
Well, our last mental health advocate said the same thing, that uh COVID had contributed to, a lot of people falling into depression and having some type of, anxiety. And one of the things I discovered was, and it's been on the news quite often, that during that period of time, there was also a rising cases of domestic disputes as well.
Yes, yes. That kind of goes in hand when people have probably, if you're home, you could have a drink at 8. You don't have to wait till lunchtime, right? So a lot of it, I think, is a part of us just not being able to be ourselves, because that is the key, I feel, to mental health, is that you're able to be your authentic self, You don't have to worry about what someone else is thinking. You can smile or you can frown. Just be you. And when you can be yourself, you're probably being the best you can be. So you're probably going to feel better about yourself.
Do you feel that people are getting adequate mental health care? Is there are any is there a gap? Let's say, is there like a gap between mental health care as a profession? Do you think that people are receiving adequate medical care? 'Cause, I mean, mental health care, because I know it varies um, across the country. Here in Alabama, for example, and I told the last person this, a mental health advocate that I had last Saturday, that I told her that mental health care in Alabama sucks to the core.
Mm, so sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
You
we don't hardly invest, in mental health care, at all. We don't invest in healthcare at all.
That's
Um,
terrible.
we
Terrible,
don't
terrible,
have
terrible.
so we don't have, there's no Medicaid expansion, here in the state. We have a lot of rural hospitals that are closing by the numbers. And people have to drive 50 and 60 miles plus to get to the nearest doctor, whether it's a medical doctor or a mental health doctor. And we don't know what are the chances are them getting the help that they need or surviving. As a matter of fact, it's pretty low, depending on who you are. I mean, if you are a low income person, or if you come from a low income family, your chances are slimmer in getting any type of medical care versus someone who I say is privileged and are able to afford to go to the next nearest city or town to get medical care. And why
Yeah.
is mental health is so important?
Yes, yes, yes. It's without us getting political, because that's what it kind of comes down to, is that the individuals are represented by their representatives to provide them adequate services. And it's called cost and benefit. You understand budget when you're low income. But what I really hope that we can kind of work on as a nation, and even across the world, is that when we have a broken arm, everybody understands that someone is hurt, right?
Mhm.
And oh, are you okay? Oh, what happened? Oh, I feel so sorry for you. We have really sympathy and empathy for those who break a leg or break an arm. But when someone is depressed or on a high level of stress, it's hard for us to relate to that, because it's like, don't tell me any bad news. So rather than feeling like someone has to tell you bad news, you can just say, you know what? I can see that you don't feel your best. Would you like to get a cup of coffee? Just without even talking about the problem or even addressing the problem, just address the person that they are seen, they are heard, and you care.
So one of the problems that I have is that, going back to what you were saying, is that people tend to have more sympathy, they more empathize with you if you have an illness that people can actually see, meaning that there are actually physical symptoms. But when it comes to mental health, I hear stuff like, oh, it's just a phase. They tell you to, suck it up. They tell you that it's no big deal, but they have no idea what these individuals are going through who are dealing with a mental illness. I have a problem. I have a problem with that. And what people really don't realize is that there are physical symptoms that are associated with having a mental illness. For example, what happens when you have a panic attack? Sometimes you
That's
can't,
right.
yeah, sometimes you can't breathe. you feel like you're claustrophobic. Is it you experience a claustrophobic moment, in your body? You get nauseated, dizzy, stomach problems. Some people have headaches. Some people just have like chronic, fatigue. So there are physical symptoms that are associated with most mental, illnesses, but people they don't, uh, they don't pick on it, right away. For example, people they don't look out for signs of, suicide until that person actually died. And then they would say, well, you know what? Wish I knew what the warning signs. I wish I knew
Yes.
what the warning signs were. I mean, there's lots of material that you look up, to know what the warning signs of a person who is suicidal, is. I guess our problem is as a whole is that we don't want to take the time to educate ourselves. We just assume too much and we're too judgmental. And I definitely have a problem with that. And that's why a lot of people don't want to open up and say, hey, I got a problem. I'm dealing with a mental illness, and people are suffering in silence.
Yes, you hit it on the head. That's exactly how it people feel. And the thing that I would really it would be cool is that we some of us get to learn like CPR and how to recognize if someone's having a getting ready to have a heart attack, right? Get them an aspirin. But we need to be educated in the same thing, like you said, the signs of a person that's suicidal. Because if they had someone to talk to them, possibly 9 times out of 10 that they wouldn't attempt that.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to some conference or meeting, and the meeting got so intense that um I started having a panic attack. So it was,
Did your heart flutter?
yes,
Yes.
um I couldn't breathe. It was like I was losing air. It's like I was not gasping for air, but I wasn't wheezing or anything, but you know, it affected my air supply, and I was like, you know, very anxious and jumpity and snapping at people and things of that nature. And I had, a couple of friends, they came to my aid. They talked to me, they encouraged me until I, was calm.
Turn back to yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But the first thing I had to do was to get away from the situation that I believe was stressful. So in other words, I got away from that stressful environment.
That's a good point. That is a very important key, right? Your environment. But also, another really cool thing that if we could all remember is our breath. Like when you're doing a fight or flight situation, let's say someone is getting ready to attack you, you just start breathing faster, right? Like you were saying, the experience that you had in a room of stressful conversations, right?
Mhm.
You just naturally start increasing your breath. So that's telling you that something is going on. If you can see it at that point, rather than feeling like something is wrong with you, like you did, step back and start trying to control your breath. Once you get control over your breath, then you get your mind back again. Because if you're thinking fight or flight, you're running. There's no thought, it's just go, right? So if you
That's
can
basically what
get back,
I was that's basically what I was thinking. I gotta get out of this area and come to a more calmer place. That's what I was thinking. And then there was another instance to where it seems like every new year, every time we come to New Year, we have to deal with celebratory gunfire, right? And so I'm a military veteran, and that's really bad, for us because every time I think of, random gunfire, I'm in a war zone. And what happened during that time, and it lasted a couple of days, I would not come out of my house. I would not get out of the bed. I mean, I was like literally covered up. I was, in the covers,
Yes.
like like I'm hiding in a cave or something.
Yes,
And
yes. Like you dug a hole and you're digging in until safety returns, right?
yes.
So, and that's a really good point, especially being an ex-veteran, because our culture, because I mean, you're a perfect example that I can say this about our culture, and I mean Western culture all across the world. You cannot be a victim, right? Don't even think about it. But the reality is that people are hurt. You did not have the choice to not take a gun and do your duty, right? So that means that people are hurt. And when a person can say, I'm hurt, that's the first step. Rather than going, no, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. No, I'm hurt. And it's okay to say that. And if you can say that, then you can start trying to figure out what hurt you. But you've got to first be able to say, I'm hurt or I'm hurting.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but for some people, that's easier said than done because if if I say I'm using myself for an example, if I say, okay, I have a problem, I've been diagnosed with this mental illness, right off the bat, you got some people there are they're judgmental, they think I'm crazy. They think I belong in the loony house. They're going to try to have me committed or locked up.
Oh,
Or you
God.
have, or you have some doctors, or you have some doctors, that say, oh, you just, come here, just so I can prescribe you some drugs. And there has been some times where, doctors will accuse a person who is dealing with a mental illness to be, a
I
drug.
know. I do that. I deal with that a lot, and I understand, and I can definitely sympathize with you that when you're like, if you're having a panic attack, sometimes you may feel like you're having a heart attack, right?
Yes.
So then when you go to the doctor and they go, oh, your heart is okay, get out of here, right? But in reality, they should have been. And I think that from my training, that they're trying to work on that a little bit better rather than trying to send you off to a mental health therapist. Try to do a triage on you right there so they can at least start getting you pointing in the right direction rather than just ignoring that you're dealing with some mental exhaustion and then you have to go home. So I think that's the most important thing is that if we can first get educated to recognize that we all have stressors. There's nobody on the planet unless they're tiny whatever, but we all have stressors. So we're all in this together. How can you say someone is Looney Tune or they need to go somewhere else when you know you have stress too, right?
Because you have some people think that they're better.
Oh, well, that's a different subject. I can't comment on that one. That's a different subject.
Well,
Most of
I mean,
the,
that's the truth.
well, I think when
And
people
I have
have
no
ego
problem.
concerns, when you're dealing with your ego, it's more likely you're feeling a little inadequate about it, right?
Oh, absolutely. But
So
people don't want to talk about that either. There's some type, obviously there's some type of insecurity that this person, is having, and they make themselves, feel better by judging and condemning others. It's an
yes,
underlying problem that a person that does that does not want to deal with it because they don't want to make it seem like, they're crazy, either. So if I don't want to be with those type of labels, I'm quite sure that they don't want to be labeled, as such neither. So I think if they understand that concept, then I believe that they would be a little bit more sympathetic or empathetic. So that's just my opinion though.
I agree with you 100%.
But
But I
as
think we
long
all
as
just,
we have these mental the stigmas, people are going to continue to suffer in silence and they're not going to get the help that they need. And then we're going to be attending someone's funeral because it's been a death by suicide. And they're going to say, well, I wish I was there to help that person. And I'm like, you had the opportunity, but you didn't. And now, you feel guilty. It's too late. There's nothing you can do. The damage has been done. But now the question is, well, now don't do that to the next person, that you have encountered because you may never know what that person is going through. A little
yes,
thing will work out, even when someone is having a bad day. And I've seen this, for myself, that a smile would change a person's outlook.
yes,
I've seen
absolutely,
it.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's exactly what I was wanting to say, that if we can get back to where we have a zero tolerance for bullies, you know, that will help everybody a long way, because no one has the right to tell someone that their fingerprints are not worth it. If creation gave you fingerprints, then you have a purpose on the planet.
All right. So one of the things that I talked about in the last conversation that I had with mental health.
Excuse me.
So we talked a lot about children and their mental health. And one of the things that I got backlash on is social media. I mentioned on social media, I put a post, I said, there is no such thing as a bad child. And I got a lot of
Absolutely.
backlash, on that. I'm like, first of all, y'all
Oh,
don't even know the
terrible, terrible.
reason. And I'm like, first of all, y'all don't even know the reasoning behind why I would say that. And people tell me, oh, you don't know what my child does, blah, 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 blah. I said, first of all, you're gonna have to separate the bad behavior from the child.
Absolutely, absolutely,
That's the first thing
absolutely,
you gotta do. Because I'm a
absolutely.
substitute teacher too. And so what happened was one time I went to this alternative school. I'm not giving any names, no specific places. But I was at this alternative school and my class was nothing but young men, middle school age, right? And so I decided to, just have a general conversation, how they doing, how they, feeling. And I was getting all types of, responses about how, their parents, their family members, and teachers were kept telling them that, you're bad, you're a bad person, you're no good, you like, this person, you're never going to amount to anything, all of this negativity. And one young man asked me, is this who I am? I'm like, absolutely not. The only person that can determine who you are is you.
That's right.
And so what I
That's right.
began to do is to speak life and positivity, in there. And you know what they told me? They said, no one has ever talked to me like that. And I was like, really, why? So they got,
Mm.
deeper, into why they're always being told, negative stuff. Is because they have not separated the person, from the behavior. So there's no such thing as a bad person, just like there's no such thing as a fool. We do foolish things, but we shouldn't be called a fool. And we engage
That's
in bad
very true.
behavior, but we're not bad. And I got a
This is
lot of
true.
backlash, on that. But again, I stood my ground. And I was like, if you really take the time to understand why I say that, then I wouldn't be having, all of these negative comments.
True.
But it's fun.
One really good point to what you're saying is the fact that when a baby is born, the baby is they're pure. They have a little personality because of their DNA, but they are flawless. They are flawless, right? So then as they go through their environment, they begin to pull on these characteristics and traits of their environment. Does that mean that they're bad? No. It means that they've been exposed and taught some things that may be useful, that may not be useful, but it doesn't mean that they're bad. So that you are 100% correct on that.
Like, for example, they can be taught to hate as much as being taught to love.
That's a really good, well-rounded individual is when you recognize that no one is all good, no one is all bad. No one, we all have our ups and downs and our things that we like and we don't like. So the most important thing that I feel for each person to accept is that, am I enjoying more of my day every day, or am I not having a great day? Then you have to ask yourself the second question. In me not enjoying my day, not only am I causing myself stress, but who else am I causing stress? To give me this feedback to where I'm not having a good day. So that's the measurement that we all use every day is how much of your day do you get to enjoy?
That's a very interesting point. So one of the things you also talk about is self-care. And I know that a lot of my friends, they get on me about this, self-care thing, because I am always on the go. I'm always doing something. I'm always, working on, something. They'd be like, you need to take some time, to yourself. And I have a hard time, doing that. But then sometimes my body will let me know that it shuts down, and I'm forced to rest.
So I encourage you once a week, set a date with yourself on your calendar to where either you do a bubble bath, you do listen to music, whatever it is you enjoy, for just 1 hour. If you're too busy, 30 minutes. But give yourself you time every single week, at least an hour per week, at least. And put it on your schedule so it's a part of your requirements of what you have to do that week.
What is the correlation between self-care and mental?
I'm sorry, what did you ask me again?
What is the correlation between self-care and mental health?
Well, they are hand in hand. It's like the we have two hands, but they're not the same, but they're both hands. Is vitally critical to your well-being is to take time for yourself. Like you said, you're on the go. I don't know how many businesses you're running, how many family members you're accountable to, maintaining your house, cooking, cleaning, shopping. If we can just wake up and go to bed constantly busy. So you have to allocate, and really the key for me is every single day. If it's just 15 minutes, take some time to do something that you love to do. 15 minutes a day.
Oh, right. This has been some really good discussion here. We're gonna get ready to close in a few minutes. Um, I want to know, how would people be able to reach you? How will they able to purchase, if they want to purchase their book, if they have questions about some of the things that you have mentioned here? How can the audience reach you?
Sure. I can be reached. My book can be bought on Amazon.com. The title of the book is Unlock the Secrets for Relaxers, Perms, and Colors. There it is. Can you see it?
Yes.
And that's the book. So you can go online. Oops, I had it upside down.
Oh no, I mean, you had it. You had it right
I
the first time.
Okay.
Yep. That's
Unlike the secret to relaxes, perms, and colors. There you go. And then you can go to my website, junopromise.com. And on my website, there's a little area where you can comment or talk to me through that. So you can reach out that way. And then you can junopromise@junopromise.com. Either any of those, you can reach me directly.
and here at the Australia broadcast section, we have an opportunity to where our guests will provide the audience with the last word, and it can be actually, anything. It doesn't necessarily have to deal with the topic being discussed, but it could be anything that um, it could be inspiring, it could be enlightening, it could be entertaining, it could be whatever. So, what are your
Okay,
last
well,
audience?
sure. Well, in light of what you talked about, Keith, some really important subjects, we just have to always remember that when we're taking an airplane ride, the plane is crashing, we put the oxygen on us first, and then we reach out to help the next person, our loved one, or someone beside us who may need some help. So it's always important to love yourself first, and then you can love someone else. And go get the book. Thank you, Keith. It was a pleasure talking to you. I enjoy speaking with you tonight.
Thank you so much. Let's show some love here to let's show some love to Rose. Rose Bonner. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Really enjoy you. As always, with all of our guests, very informative. I hope that something has been said here that would help you. And of course, if you're able to contact her, please do with any questions or comments or feedback. We'd love to have them. And I'm quite sure she would love to have them as well. And that will do it for us here on The Works. I'm Keith Williams, your host. Thank you for so much for tuning in. We got another great show for you next week. So I hope you'll be able to tune in. Until then, have a great weekend.